Venom, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a quality control on an assembled unit. When you guys order your units, you guys can get them assembled, which I would recommend. It's so much nicer to have us assemble it, and then I do an inspection on it before it goes out. That way there's no issues with it when you're trying to assemble. If there's anything we come across assembling it here, obviously we can address it here, and then when it gets to you, it's 100%. So first things first, this is how I approach every unit after they're assembled. I come to it, there's going to be a box here. It's going to have some different things in it. I'll show you that in a few moments. Then I have my checklist here. I'm going to go over my checklist, make sure everything is good on the machine. We're going to do a quick startup. I'm going to check kill switches, make sure everything works. I want to make sure my front end's aligned. I want to make sure everything's tightened. But this is basically our checklist. So this is one of our technicians' names. Name's Jason. He assembled this unit. He assembled it on December the 17th, 2019. It's a 125 Premium Maddox white. And it's a 2019. So I'm right now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start checking for my bolts. First things first, I come back to the back tires. I make sure that the lug nuts are on. It's a nice castle nut. It's holding it in tight. You'll see that he has the cotter pin in here just like he's supposed to. You'll see that the tire pressure is where it's supposed to be. It's not leaking air. All this is nice and tight. So we're going to move up to the front now. I want to check my front nuts. So I'm going to check my front lugs. If you notice, they're all on nice and tight. I can tell that they're on nice and tight just by the length of the bolt coming out. So I know that these are on tight. I check my front castle nut here. You'll see it has its cotter pin in it. It's all nice and tight. So then I'm going to come up. I'm going to start checking shocks. I want to make sure my shocks are nice and tight. So I'm going to check both bolts, top and bottom. They're nice and tight. All that's good. I'm going to start checking down here to make sure all castle nuts have cotter pins. So all my castle nuts are good. They all have their cotter pins in. Everything's nice and tight there. So I'm going to move to my next tire. I'm going to do the same thing. I just want to make sure everything's in nice and tight. Cotter pins are in. Cotter pins are in. Cotter pins in. All that's nice. I'm going to check my shock. Yeah, it's nice and tight. At the top, nice and tight at the bottom. Then I'm going to go again, check my lug nuts on this tire. They're all good. The bolts are out. It's good spacing for the nut here. You'll see that there's spacing. It's nice and tight here. You're going to see a tiny little gas tank here. The reason I do this is when I'm testing a unit, I don't want to put gas in the tank because we have to ship it. A lot of shipping companies do not want to ship with gas or anything in it. I get that. It's explosive and they don't want any sort of pressure buildup. So I just have a little portable tank here. I just hook it up to the carburetor. So when you do get your unit, it's still going to start because in the carburetor, there's still going to be gas residually left in the bottom of the bowl of the carburetor. So you could literally start this as soon as you get it without putting gas in it. I always still recommend putting gas in it first. But there is going to be gas in the carburetor, so it should start up right away. Then I'm going to come back to my back tire here, and I'm going to make sure that he had the castle nut. He put it in nice and tight, and then he has the cotter pin in there. It's all nice and tight, and that's all good. So that's what I'm going to check. Now, after I do my start, there's a few things I'm going to do. First thing, I'm going to lube the chain. I always like to lube the chain. I check the tension of the chain. That's perfect right there. You want about a ½ inch of play. That's about where that is. I want to make sure that all my reflectors are on. I'm going to go ahead and lube the chain. Like I said, I like to keep it lubed. Yeah, there is a little bit of lube on it when you get it, but it doesn't take much. Driving a little bit in the snow or out in the sand, it'll dry out really fast, and then it'll get rusty, and first thing that's going to happen is you're going to snap a link. I don't want to snap any links, so I use a Jiggy Lube. It's basically like a synthetic grease, but it's great for chains. You can buy chain grease too, but if you see when I'm spraying this, it doesn't just fall off like WD-40. It actually coats the chain. And that's what I want. I want to coat this chain so when it gets to your house, it's still nice and thick. So if you see a little bit of white around here or down here on the guard, that's actually us. We've lubed the chain for you. Okay, so we're going to come up. We're going to do our initial start here. Right, so I got my little gas can hanging on. I'm going to go to the key right here, turn my key on. You're going to want to come over, especially when it's cold, you're going to want to come down here. You're going to see the choke is down. You're going to want to put the choke up to start it. So the choke's up right now. Don't mind this, I will put that back on the carburetor. But right now the choke is up, so let's give it a start. You're going to come up to your handlebar. You're going to grab your brake. and you're gonna hit your start button. There you go, fire it right up. So now I'm gonna let it warm up a minute or two just before I turn my choke off. I might give it a couple revs. That'll help it warm up too. I think it's pretty well warm up there, so I'll come up. The little choke arm, you're gonna put it back down. Okay. So when it's cold, you want that up. When it's warm, you want it down. So now it's nice and warm. So next thing, what we're gonna do is we're gonna check our lights. See, I got my low beam off in the front. Then I'm gonna check my high beam. My high beam works good. Then we're gonna come back to the back. You'll see at the back there's a nice bright light there. We're gonna make sure our brake light works perfect. Both sides. Beautiful. Then we're gonna come up here to the horn. Horn works perfect. So we're gonna shut off the lights. Then we're gonna start doing tilt switches. So first things first, we're gonna check the one of the handlebars. Kills the machine right away. It's perfect. That's what it's supposed to do. We're gonna put it back on the circle. Start it back up. Then we're going to go over to our remote control. We want to make sure our remote control works. Kills the engine. When you hit this remote, you want to double click the unlock to start it again. Okay, it starts right back up. That's all working great. So we like that. Here's the tether switch. So the tether, basically what happens if your son or daughter falls off, it pops off and it kills it too. Want to make sure that works too. Perfect. So that's working perfectly. So, and it's all starting. And check my brakes that are nice and tight. Perfect. Okay, now we can go to my key. I want to make sure my key shuts it off as well. Excellent. So then there's one more check that I like to do. I like to check my gas cap. A lot of people have a hard time taking these gas caps off. It's not hard. A lot of people are just trying to do it like this, and your fingers are not gonna move that like that. It's just not gonna move. So what I want you to do is take your thumb, push down on the button, and use your hand and rotate it off like that. And that's how that gas cap comes off. So it goes on and off very nicely. You do not need a hose on this for the top. Usually gas spills out, but this actually has a check valve inside. So if I remove this again, lock all the way down. There we go. And you'll hear there's a little ball in there, a little check valve. So what happens there inside there, it'll stop gas from spilling out of this hole, but lets air get into the gas tank, and you want that. So we'll put that back on. That's good. Then we're going to come to the front end. What I like to do, the last thing I like to do is make sure that my front end is aligned. So if I have a bad alignment in the front end, like one tire is going one way and the other tire is going the other way, that's not good. So what I'm going to do is I'll check to make sure that these tires are straight. I'll stand, we'll just let it roll back. I'll stand back and I'll make sure that the front end is straight before I send it out. I'll make sure that my handlebars are straight. They're nice and straight. And I want to make sure that my steering's straight. I don't want wheels to go out sideways or that way, or even camber. You have to check the camber. This one I noticed right away, the camber's in at the top. So if you notice this tire's kind of leaned in at the top. So I don't want that. So I have a wrench, so I'm going to fix that right now. So to fix this, what you're going to need is you're going to need a 24 open end wrench. You're going to need this end open. And there's a reason for that. Oh, goodness. There we go. So I want to loosen this because I want to bring the top out. That right now it's leaned in too far to the four-wheeler. So you'll see I make a tiny space there. You'll see the spacer. And then I can rotate this one and it'll bring it in. Okay, take a look at it now. It's still in a bit. There we go. Almost where we want it, right there. Perfect. Now if you stand back and you look at that tire, you'll see that it's actually straight. It's not leaned into the ATV anymore. You don't want it leaned in. Now we're going to come back over to this tire. You'll see that the front of this tire is turned out, where this tire is completely straight, which is where it's supposed to be. This tire at the front is kind of turned out a little bit. We don't want that because we want both tires on the front to be straight. What it'll do is, if I was to leave this tire like this and send it to you, it'll literally wear that tire right off. because it's always kind of trying to pull the four-wheeler the one way. You don't want that. So I'm gonna go get another set of wrenches. To straighten the front end, you're gonna want two 14-inch or 14mm wrenches. Sorry. We're gonna loosen this nut off. And there's another nut up on the other side. You're just gonna loosen that off. And then right here in the front is where you adjust it. So I'm gonna adjust it a little bit out because it was towing out toward the crate and I don't want that. So let's bring it in a bit. And then once I brought it in, I can step back here and I can take a look and see if it's straight. It probably has to go a tiny bit more. Check it again. Okay, that's nice and straight. So now to tighten it, again, you take your, the reason you have two 14mm bolts, or wrenches, is because you're going to tighten this nut up here, and this nut tightens up to the shaft in the center. You want to hold the shaft while you tighten the nut, so nothing goes out of alignment while you're tightening. Okay, and again, you're going to go up and do the same thing here. And you're going to hold the center while you tighten your nut. Okay, perfect. Another thing I do, this machine's actually idling really nice, but I do check the idle. So if the idle was very low on this, I would come and I would adjust the idle. The idle screw on this unit is on the other side. Yeah, okay, so the choke's here. So let's go to the other side. Sometimes, if you live at a different elevation than where the ATV was set up, you'll have to set the idle. So if you look up here, there's a little black dot right there. If you pop that little black dot out, right behind that there's an idle screw. Turn it clockwise to idle up, counterclockwise to idle down. So like I said, this one's idling perfectly, so I'm not gonna bother with it. I'm gonna leave it alone. But if you need to adjust your idle is right behind that little black plug. You just pop it out with a screwdriver. So now we're almost done our inspection. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come up here. We're gonna come to our box. I'll show you all the little goodies we send you. Here's your owner's manual. Set that off to the side. This is your certificate of origin. This is if you want to license the machine. Basically, you take this into the DMV and they'll get you all registered and set up. Again, we'll put this off with the manual. These are pads to put around the battery. The battery already has the pads around, so we'll put that right there for now. Here's your toolkit that we send you. Inside this toolkit, there's everything to be when you're on the trails. If you break down, there's every wrench in here you need. There's a spark plug wrench to, that's something definitely. We do send you a spare spark plug. It's an NGK spark plug. The NGK spark plugs I recommend all the time because they can take the heat of a 4-stroke engine. So it's always great to actually just put that spark plug right in your toolbox, or your toolkit, and keep that under your seat. Under your seat here, you have a little space for a toolkit. You will get this foam rubber piece. It actually goes on here, but we do not install that for the simple fact is when we ship it with the handlebars down. If we ship it with the handlebars up, somebody's gonna put something on top or something's gonna get hit and it's just gonna get broke. So what we do is we just loosen off these 4 bolts here and we just fold it down. So when you get it at home and you receive your ATV, all you'd have to do basically is loosen this up, bring your handlebars up, tighten these bolts down, and then you can put your foam block on. Okay, so then we're gonna go back into our box here. We send you also a bag here with spare bolts. So if sometime in the anything gets lost, you lose a bolt, there's usually the extra bolt is right in here. So almost every bolt we have on this ATV is in this little bag right here, and it's just spare bolts. It's great to have. So just kind of make sure and save that. Don't lose that or throw them away when you get your unit. We also send a spare CDI. CDI is basically the computer of your unit. It programs everything for your engine, your ignition, all that stuff. We send a spare one. It's always good to have a spare one of these too. So we do send a spare, and we also send a spare coil. Coils are common. Will pop sometimes, so we send an extra coil too, which is fantastic. There's not too many manufacturers that actually give extra parts like this when they assemble a unit. You just get your unit, and if you need to buy any of that stuff, you have to go to the manufacturer after and buy it yourself. We include this when your kids are riding on a Saturday or something, you know what I mean, and he breaks down quickly, you know what I mean, you have the extra parts, you can get your son or daughter back up rolling again. So we're going to put all that back in here. So I checked to see everything was in there. So now we're going to go over my checklist real quick. We'll go to a flat service and we'll fill this out. Okay, so I'm going to come to my assembly checklist. You'll see I checked to see if the wheels were tightened, the nuts were properly torqued, handlebars are adjusted, and foot controls. That's something I didn't show you real quick, but I just went ahead and lubed the chain, so it's not that big a deal. I double checked all the bolts were tightened. The battery's properly installed. Feel it's 100% charged. I know that obviously because I started it. This one doesn't come with a back rack, but some of them do. But it does kind of have a semi sort of back rack, so I went ahead and I checked that too. Remember, I aligned this straightened the front end, so camber and caster, I made sure that the front end is all straight, and I made sure everything was put in. So I can go down my checklist and I can check all this off. Check engine oil. Your bike actually comes with an engine oil already in it. It's a break-in oil. I would suggest maybe run the ATV 6-7 hours on it, then do an oil change, because you do want that break-in oil in there. So I don't check oil in the ATVs because I already know it comes with a break-in oil, and that is to help break in the engine. This engine has never ran before it's come to you, so it has no hours on it at all, and you're going to be the one breaking in the engine. So like I said, 6 to 8 hours. After 6 to 8 hours of riding, do change the oil, please. Then we're going to go carburetor. There was no leaks or anything. Fuel system is all good. Throttle operation, I revved it a few times. It pops right back to place. The choke, we checked the choke when we made it running. Our brake fluid, I checked the brake controls. There's no coolant on this bike. Some of our bikes are water cooled, but this one is not. Final drive fluid levels are all checked. Battery is good. Electrical check. You noticed I checked the headlights, engine stop switches, tail lights, starter, charging system, and horn. So we can go through this here and check this all off. Okay, so now we're going to go to our second page. And we checked our engine idle. Our tires were checked, properly inflation, I checked those. Test ride I pretty well did before we put it on the pallet, so I know the transmission, brakes, all that stuff works. We checked the ATV is clean, there's no leaked fluids anywhere. And the drive chain is lubricated and adjusted for slack. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put quality checked. December 18th, 19. I'm going to sign that. My name is Sean. December 18th, 2019. So now this checklist is done. So you know now, if you got an assembled unit, you'll know it's assembled. Obviously, as soon as you get your box and it has Venom tape on it, you're going to see a Venom tape. I'm going to go ahead and tape off this box as soon as I'm done. But as soon as I put the tape on it, then it's checked. It's quality control checked. That's why I really push for the assemblies. That way you get it. Basically, you turn the key on and you drive it off the pallet. All right, guys, that's how we do our quality control checks. And have a great day.